So this Sasquatch man from Minnesota came all the way here to tell us that we're keeping our reptiles wrong.
That is correct. I am Sasquatch. I am from Minnesota. And you guys, you're really keeping your reptiles wrong.
So we're gonna take Dave around, show him some of our animals, and he's gonna tell us how he saw those same animals in the wild, because he's traveled the world. He's international YouTube superstar Dav Kaufman.
I'm just a doofus with a camera.
And we're also here with CatAleah.
Hi. I will rate how cute they are on a scale of 1 from 10 and meow.
Meow. We got a jeweled lacerda.
And this is exactly how you're supposed to keep them. Right, Dave?
Come back later, I'm herping.
Dave, what are you trying to catch?
I don't know. There's legless lizards around here.
Yeah, but probably, chances are you're not gonna find any.
Yeah, but they're cooler than... Oh, wow, jeweled lacerda.
So this is how Dave does his videos.
This is how they find them in the wild, right, Dave?
All right, so these are from Europe, Southern Europe, and they, so there's jeweled lacerdas and there's green lacerdas. And they're very similar to each other. Green lacerdas are a little further south. They go into the Middle East. These guys basically stay in Southern Europe. And I have not found these in the wild, but I have found the green ones in the wild. But your setup here, yeah, that basically looks like Italy in there.
What do you rate this one, Kat?
Honestly, I know we're starting out strong here, but I give this one a 10 out of 10.
A 10 out of 10 on our first?
Beautiful!
It is beautiful. Look at those blue spots.
Coming out strong.
Here we got some rough-throated Australian leaf-tailed geckos. Dave, tell me that's not Queensland.
It's not. But these are so rare in American collections, but these are my favorite leaf-tailed geckos in the world. I love these more than Europlatus. Australian leaf-tailed geckos, you have to think cliffs. Limestone cliffs, rocky cliffs, granite cliffs. They all cling to rock faces. And if you look at these guys' feet, they don't have the toe pads that other leaf-tailed geckos have. They have little claws and hooks, and they use those to basically cling on to the side of a rock face.
Yeah, I always wondered why their toes are so different from any of the other geckos I've ever seen. It's almost more like an iguana type of toe.
Right. So where we were finding these in Australia, it's literally up on a plateau. So you have to drive through just countless acres and miles of valley, and then all of a sudden you see this big plateau covered in palm trees. It's beautiful up there. You drive all the way up to the top of the plateau, and that's where you find these guys. You don't find them at the base of the plateau. You don't find them down the valleys. You find them up in the mountains.
How high is that?
So is it pretty humid? Like, I know these guys aren't gonna be as humid as like an island gecko, like a crested gecko or something, but
it's actually pretty cool up there. However, you know, it's Australia. It's seasonal.
yeah.
So right now it's winter in Australia, and so these guys are hibernating up there. I don't know how long they hibernate for, but it does get cold up there, and it does get even colder up in the mountains where these guys are.
Yeah, so with these guys, we don't have any heat, just the UV there, and it's kind of really, we only have the UV because there's other cages really, but yeah, no heat.
That's all you really need. And then to breed these guys, I would strongly suggest a cool down period.
Okay.
Yeah, but trade the bark for a cliff, for like rock front.
Okay.
And then
that's a good idea.
put crevices, you know, like even stack up.
That they could climb them.
Because during the day they're going to hide in those crevices. At night they're going to come out. I almost just choked on my leaf tail. But yeah, that's what I would do. I mean, but there's nothing wrong with cork bark. It does provide a place for them to cling. It does provide a place for them to hide.
But that's a good option to have in there for them.
Right. So Australian leaf tails, think rock faces.
Okay, and CatAleah, what do you rate this?
So I'm adding a new category. Cuteness, probably 8 out of 10. Coolness, though, definitely an 11 out of 10.
Oh, I would agree with that 100%. I mean, just look at this tail. I mean, they just have the coolest tails of any leaf-tailed gecko. And the coolest thing about that is that when they break off their tails and regenerate it, it gets wavy, and it actually looks cooler broken off and regenerated than it does normal like this, I think anyway.
So here I got a pink tongue skink, also from Queensland.
Correct. So these are found in more tropical areas of Queensland, up in the Cape York Peninsula, around Cairns, around basically the tropics of Australia, where it really does look like the Amazon of Australia. And these guys will become active during the rains, and they really behave more like salamanders than they do lizards, actually. As a matter of fact, the first one that we found was in a rainstorm, and we were driving around, we were road cruising. I was like, it's raining, we're not going to find anything. And one of these guys, about this size, started crossing the road, and I instinctively shouted, "Salamander!" And then it dawned on me that I was in Australia. And so we got out of the car, and it was, in fact, a pink-tongued skink. But these guys, a lot of people try to keep these like blue-tongued skinks, and they're a completely different animal than a blue-tongue.
These guys are much more arboreal. They don't like it nearly as hot. Queensland just, has beautiful weather.
Right, and they like it much more humid than blue-tongues.
Yes.
They are a tropical lizard.
And they are big-time snail eaters.
Correct.
So
much more than blue tongues.
Yes.
Blue tongues are known for that too, but these guys eat much more snail in their diet.
Because they're closer to the water.
Exactly. Correct. So what do you think about the setup? Does it look like Queensland?
No.
We're 0-2.
But you know what?
We're 0-2.
Actually,
there is a difference between functionality and mimicking its natural environment. You're never gonna be able to mimic its natural environment, but giving the lizard exactly what it needs: the places to hide, the cover, the security, the humidity, the temperature, the water, the food, essentially is where it's at.
It's all it needs for a happy, healthy lizard.
That's right.
And this has to be a 10 out of 10 on the cute scale.
Yeah,
let's find out.
Yeah, I think I would agree with that. Also helps that it's pink.
Aha!
Call it the pink.
So we got one of the coolest uromastyx in the whole world, the Ornate uromastyx.
These are the coolest in the whole world, but look at the coloration of this one. So you can tell that this one came from Africa proper. The ones that are found in the Sinai Peninsula and into Israel, much more modeled pattern, and the ones that are found in Africa are, like in Egypt for instance, they have these bandings across them, which is, I don't know if that's a hard fast rule, if there's an exception to the rule, but that's what I've kind of noticed with these guys.
That would make sense because we can't import stuff from Israel.
That's correct. So these came out of Egypt. But with ornates, it is their habitat looks like you're on another planet. It is completely desert, completely rock, and there is no vegetation to be seen anywhere. So you go into any desert in the world and you see plants and rocks, you see cactuses, you see succulents, you see whatever. In southern Israel, all rock.
So what do they eat?
So these guys have to travel a long way to find a single acacia tree or a single bush, and then they gorge themselves and go right back up on the cliff and sit up on the cliff.
So what you're saying is we're probably overfeeding them in captivity.
Absolutely we are.
Yeah.
I mean, this guy's a chumpster. But there's a benefit to having all of your needs met.
Right.
And I would say that the wild uromastyx out there would love to have this kind of body mass. Seriously.
Yeah.
Nobody wants to be skinny. Nobody wants to spend so much energy to...
Chill, Dave.
What am I saying?
Said nobody wants to be skinny.
I feel so bad for this lizard. Anyway, you're fat. No. But seriously, I mean, a wild animal doesn't want to be thin. It doesn't want to be emaciated. It doesn't want to go out and spend half of its energy trying to procure a meal. A meal. And so yeah, I mean, there are benefits to living a nice fat life in our. And a lot of people think that if you keep these guys or other reptiles fat, that's a bad thing, and it can be. It absolutely can be. But big, healthy, and robust is not fat. That is healthy. Right. That is a healthy uromastyx right there.
Yeah.
And that's...
You hear that? You're just right.
What do you think?
I'm actually curious what Dave's rating would be for this one. As
Um,
far as cuteness goes.
but it's
You
not,
already insulted him once.
it's not.
So
It's not pink and it's fat. No, these guys are my second favorite uromastyx.
It's a 10 out of 10.
And I would give this guy a 9.5 out of 10.
Oh.
what's your first?
Yeah, what's your favorite?
Egyptian?
Mollies.
Oh,
Mollies?
Yeah, the black and orange and the black and yellow mollies.
Yeah, that's a respectable answer.
Yeah.
Shout out to Hammerhead.
That's right. You got that right.
So you saw these guys in the wild. The Leachianus. Look at that. So Dave, how are these guys in the wild? Describe their habitat for us.
So it's unlike anything that you imagine it to be. It's very kind of, I mean, it's the Pacific, it's the South Pacific, so it's going to be hot, it's going to be humid. To be honest, you know, in my videos, we were clocking temperatures up into the 80s.
Right.
And these guys were out there just popping around in it. They are strictly nocturnal, and they are, you know, there's huge trees out there that would be much better suited for these guys, you'd think, to live in, but we were finding these guys in all skinny, smaller trees.
Was it ever over 85 degrees out
Yeah.
there,
Oh, yeah.
90 degrees?
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
But at that time, the
But
geckos
during the
are
day.
not out. Yeah, during
Exactly.
the day, of course.
Exactly. And at
Right.
night, you know, it was still 85.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and these guys were out running around in it.
Okay.
Whether that's their preferred temperature,
yeah, of course.
but they were thriving. They were bouncing all over the trees. And everybody told us that these guys were going to be way up in the canopy. We'd never see them. Every single one of these that we found was either on the ground or, you know, in low-lying vines and bushes, not on the ground, or on the trunks of the trees. We didn't see one of, well, we may have seen one of these up in the canopy. But what's interesting about these guys is their diet in the wild. These guys are almost, I wouldn't say entirely insectivorous, but they're primarily insectivorous. As a matter of fact, a leechie about this size, we witnessed and filmed trying to eat a katydid about that big. So he was trying to get down a katydid that was as big as he was, and he wound up giving up and dropping the katydid.
Yeah,
but
I saw that.
That's what they're eating out there, and so that one may have dropped it, but every other one of them that gets these huge katydids, they're getting them down, and that's what they're eating out there.
So do you think it could be a seasonal thing, like during the time that there's not much fruit out there, they're eating just bugs?
That's exactly what I said in the videos, exactly.
Okay, yeah.
And that's why a lot of crested geckos and leechies will kind of, you know, want fruit at one time of year and then want bugs at another time of year.
Right.
It's all seasonality out there.
Interesting.
But that doesn't mean that we necessarily need to provide these captive bred ones with that seasonality.
Right,
but it could explain why they're like, hey, I don't want this fruit anymore.
What's the one, forget what locale it is, that eats mainly crabs?
I think it was like Nuami or Nuana.
One of them, yeah.
So Philippe, when they went over there, they saw that it was one of the smaller islands,
Yeah.
but they were eating like crustaceans.
Yeah, there's small crabs all over those islands.
Yeah.
There's coconut crabs all over those islands. These guys aren't eating them.
Yeah, coconut crabs are huge.
We were eating the coconut crabs because when we were out there, we couldn't pack a lot of food in, so we were basically living off the land and eating what we could find.
Really?
Yeah, So
Dave, that's awesome.
But that's how I travel. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
if I'm going to those remote places, I'm not gonna pack food in. I'm gonna hunt and get.
Yeah, it's a rough life. It's not like it's
no, everybody
rough
thinks
out
that
there.
I take vacations for a living.
No,
I haven't
heck
taken
no.
a vacation in years.
Yeah. So, I mean, you might be a little bit biased, but
A little, maybe,
Look at
but
that face.
I'll try to be fair with
That's
a 1 million.
all right. So our favorite species of geckos here, the crested geckos. You also find them in New Caledonia.
I'm not sure what I've never heard of
Have you
that.
seen one of these before?
What is it? A crested?
Crested gecko. They also call it eyelash gecko.
Oh, yeah.
But so were these guys, when you found them in New Caledonia, were they, you know, did they have a bunch of egg crates, fake like?
All over the place.
Yeah, right.
And that's what they live in out there.
That's how they are in the wild.
So these are found on pine. And we looked pine is really weird because
Yeah.
the northern part of the island is different than the southern part. And it's not that big of an island.
What do you mean? As like weather-wise?
Just
or?
different trees, different habitat. Lots more grassland in the north than we saw in the south.
Okay.
But in the middle of the island, it's like tropical rainforest. It's a weird island.
Really?
And it's a small island with lots of different microhabitats to it. These were only found on the north part of the island.
Okay.
That we found, and I'm sure they're found all over the island. But you go into a rainforest trying to find that, and you're not going to.
Right. That's
That doesn't mean that they're not there.
But you did find a couple. Those that you did find, were they you know, hiding in between things during the day? They were just out on the branches.
They were up on, the first one that we found was way high up in the branches. The second one that we found was about shin high in a bush.
Really?
Yeah, and not even in a bush, like in roadside weeds.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was just there. So, you know, we are told that these guys are canopy dwellers. They're not. We're told that Leachianus are canopy dwellers. They're not. They are in the canopy.
Right.
They spend a lot of time in the canopy.
Right.
But they're not canopy lizards.
Right. They go all over.
They go all over.
Obviously, a wild crested gecko is going to be completely different than one in captivity.
They do look much, much different.
Right.
You know, like for instance, our eyelashes on this one, our crests on this one, almost non-existent in wild ones.
Okay.
That is a line-bred trait in our captive
Right. During the time that you went, it was mostly like, I guess, bug season.
It was bug season.
You weren't finding fruits.
But we were
stuff?
finding you know, rotten tropical fruit on the ground, and that's what they want. They want that soft, mushy.
Right.
Obviously, they're not going to go out there and take a bite of an apple.
Right.
They're going to wait for that apple to get turned basically into applesauce before they go for it.
Right.
But yeah, we were finding a lot of that kind of rotting fruit on the ground. That could explain why they were coming out of the canopy at that time.
Okay.
You know, they're not going to find rotting fruit up in the canopy. They're only going to find it on the ground.
So you did say they were not necessarily like hiding during the day, but they were out. And were they basking or were they under cover?
Almost entirely nocturnal.
Okay. Okay.
So during the day, they could have been there, but we only found them at night. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Yeah. So we're not sure where they're going during the day. Like I said, so much work on those islands need to be done.
Right.
It could be that they're just hiding under bark and waiting for night.
Right.
You know?
Yeah, they got to be escaping the heat somehow, right?
Right. And it is hot on those islands. It's a lot hotter than we think.
Yeah, it's a tropical island.
Exactly right.
Yeah, of course.
Exactly right. And it is very, very humid on those islands. But at night, it's kind of like a cold wet. And so I don't think that we are keeping our geckos humid enough.
Okay.
I think we need to increase the humidity with these guys.
Yeah.
Not by much, you know. I mean, it doesn't have to be 90, 80, not even 80%.
Right.
But like in a situation like this is probably like the perfect temperature and the perfect humidity that it is in here right now.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I think the tubs really help with that because there's less. The humidity doesn't go anywhere. It kind of stays in there when you have it.
And a lot of people, you know, shy away from tubs.
Yeah.
There's nothing wrong with tubs. They hold in humidity. They give security. I mean, look at that. I mean, that is a perfectly healthy gecko that is thriving.
Sponsored by Dav Kaufman.
That's right. Sponsored by Rattle On Media. But no, I mean, that's a perfectly healthy, thriving gecko.
CatAleah, what do you think? Cuteness scale?
I'll give this one a 2 billion.
2 billion.
This is champ. Champ. Let's put him back.
Cool.
All right, guys, that's a wrap. Thank you for coming here and criticizing our enclosures.
Well, you know, it's not just criticizing, you know, for scientific purposes. It's criticizing for fun, is what it is.
Yeah, you know, crap on us all over, no problem.
I'm telling you guys, you know, as I said in my video, watching you guys go from a spare bedroom in your mom's house to this is incredible.
I didn't personally see that, but I did see the videos, and I can see the transition is like
it is incredible
awesome.
what you guys are doing here.
Thank you guys for coming.
Absolutely,
for real.
my man. Thank you for having us out here.
Right
on.
We hug each other when you guys aren't looking.
All right, guys. They also, we don't got to tell you, but Dav Kaufman, subscribe to their YouTube channel, CatAleah, TikTok international superstar, and check them out on YouTube and all their social media. I'll put it down below in the description. Thank you guys for watching. I'll see you on the next one.